Welcome to a very special episode of the Guaranteed Irish Business Podcast, recorded live in the Stella Theatre in Ranelagh. This week, we pass the reins to guest host Bernard Jackman to discuss the business of sport with an exciting panel of experts.
The Guaranteed Irish Business Podcast, supported by FBD Insurance, Ireland's largest homegrown insurer. Support, it's what we do.
My name's Bernard Jackman. I think Breed and the team at Guaranteed Irish are very brave to let me ask the questions. I remember back when I was in Irish camp with a guy called Eddie O'Sullivan who coached Ireland, and I put my hand up in a meeting and I said, Eddie, can I ask a stupid question? Better than anyone I know, he said. So they're very good to give me the confidence to do this, and hopefully we'll have a good chat. We're going to have about 35 minutes discussion around the sport and business, the business of sport, and then we'll open up to the floor for some questions. And it's an area I'm fascinated in myself. When I retired in 2010, I went back and did a thesis on the correlation between high performance behaviour in sport and business, and I went travelling the world. I went to Toyota in Tokyo, I went to Amazon Seattle, the IMG Tennis Academy in Florida, Just Eat in London, were a startup at the time, Man United, Sydney Swans, the All Blacks, and lots of different places. And every year now I try and go away somewhere to a company or business I admire to try and see why they're successful. And I'm going down to Skibbereen actually in 2 weeks' time, down to the rowing club, because that's now a mecca of high performance sport. So the best rowing coaches in the world are coming to Skibbereen to see what the secret is. And they're expecting this massive facility with state-of-the-art technology, and it's actually, there's nothing there. It's a shed with weights that are welded together, but there's something special there. And it's created by the people in Skibbereen who've created this culture of performance. And we've got a great panel today to talk about their businesses, their experience in sport, and the insights and things that they've learned. So I'd just like to start by introducing Sene Naoupu. Obviously, you know her from your screens on Virgin BBC, played for Ireland, won a Six Nations with Ireland in 2015. Jack Molloy is back in his family business, Azzurri down in Waterford, a real success story, and I'll let him speak about that in a minute. And then Ross Byrne obviously just won a Grand Slam with Ireland. Bit of pressure on him to steer Leinster home in next month, but he's well able for pressure, and an entrepreneur in his own right, obviously starting up a company called Starfolio. So I might just start with you, Sene, and get this part out of the way first, the rugby. This weekend, obviously Ireland play England. In 2015, you made your debut for Ireland and were part of that Six Nations win for Ireland. It's a different landscape at the moment for the girls who are playing. But where do you see that going over the next couple of years for this Irish team?
Yeah, before I answer that, Bernard, thank you very much for the intro, and I also just want to acknowledge and thank Rita and John and everyone for having me here today. It's really is a privilege to be on this panel and to listen to your story at the start and to sit alongside these two gents. So thanks for having me. Irish women's rugby in a 15 sense is at the start of its journey. So it is a challenging time when other unions are at different phases, but really, really important and exciting opportunity for those who have the opportunity to train their hearts out and play for Ireland on the world stage. So pretty much it's, we're at a different phase compared to other countries.
Okay, and before you're doing what you're doing now, you set up your own business, a fitness business, and tell us about starting that and where that ended up and obviously what you're doing now.
Yeah, very quickly. So I'm probably don't look Irish. I would. I'm a New Zealand-born Samoan first generation, and I would consider myself now Irish. I feel very, very humbled and privileged to have lived in Ireland for over 10 years, and in some ways sort of earned the right to then represent Ireland. So I hope that's okay with you in this room.
You've more than earned the right, yeah.
So I wanted to give you that context because I came over here originally because of my ex-husband's work at the time as a professional player. And so I've been very fortunate to immerse myself in communities across New Zealand, Japan, UK, Ireland. And with me along that journey, I've always had that entrepreneurial spirit. And I've always had that sense of community and connection everywhere I went. And so when we did come to Ireland, December 2009, for 6 months, then we went to Japan for a year and came back to Ireland for another 6.5 seasons. It was at the start of our second time coming back to Ireland that I felt a genuine sense of, you know, we absolutely love this country and this place and town, and we just felt that it's the right place to sort of set up something like a business, a small, very, very small business that we ended up franchising across the country, but a business that would bring together a small community. And it was a sports-inspired fitness class at the time, and it was the class that I owed my comeback to rugby. I thought I'd retired, and I thought I was ready for the next phase of my life at that stage, and saw a Talent ID advertisement from Irish Rugby on Facebook, and I thought, oh, doesn't matter if I'm one of the oldest girls in that trial, I'll give it a go. So yeah, it was because of that fitness sort of business that I set up back then in Galway that was able to not only bring together hundreds of people in the community of Galway and throughout the country, but also we were able to raise thousands and thousands of euros for charity as well. So those sorts of things kind of lent itself to me wanting to then represent the community. Connacht first, and then obviously Galwegians first, Sevens program, 15s game, touch rugby a little bit later. So I'm very, very humbled to represent Ireland in 3 sports over the last few years. And so that company itself and the foundation and principles and all of that sort of stuff, community, connection, having the crack, it actually lent itself to my experience and immerse in community throughout my playing career. For Leinster as well, Old Belvedere, Harlequins, Exeter Chiefs for a short stint, and then obviously in the Irish jersey, but certainly in my work in global strategic projects, and some of the work that we're able to then align ourselves with global governing bodies, national governing bodies to support our high performance programs and to really support environments where girls and women have an equal opportunity to sport and to truly be their best selves and thrive. Long-winded answer of but I've seen Shaper started about 10 years ago.
Brilliant. Jack, I remember you in DCU a long time ago. Tell us about your journey to being sales director of Azzurri.
Yeah, bit of a roller coaster since then, I suppose. I wasn't always involved with the family business. Fortunately, I was able to take some time after DCU to pursue other things. I used to work up in a company called Currency Fair. We were involved in kind of peer-to-peer foreign exchange. Worked with Oracle in Dublin for a long time, and then I was able to do some travel. I was only talking with Sene before this, how I lived over in New Zealand as well. So and then kind of coming to the end of that stint, had some conversations with my father, and the opportunity and the timing kind of seemed right to come back and help the family kind of drive things on within the business. And it's been a great decision, and that's where the roller coaster part kind of comes into it, because my involvement with the company has predominantly been, for the last 5 years, which has been a significant period, especially because of COVID and all the changes and the I don't have to explain it, how we had to adapt and try different things, and here we are 5 years later. We're still going. We're growing our market share, and things have been really positive. Been a challenging period, but just been loving it all the way.
You mentioned COVID there and having to change and adapt.
Yeah.
Can you just, I suppose, give us a little bit more information around what the kind of changes you made, how that's affected your business now?
Sure. Well, obviously, when it all first kicked off, we went home. Everybody was going to take some significant time off, but we thought, look, what can we do to help the situation? So we developed a spec for a reusable mask. And it was the first one to hit the market. So what we did was we started giving them out for free. I think we gave out roughly 15,000 masks for free over maybe a 3 or 4 week period. And then from that, we caught the attention of Enterprise Ireland, who were working with the HSE because the HSE couldn't find a mask, to save their soul. So what we did was we developed a secondary business called Apparel Supply, which was making masks exclusively for the HSE, all down in Waterford as well. I think at the height of it, they were making about 100,000 masks a day. And here we are now again, I think maybe about a year and a half later, the plant is still going. So there's actually 2 businesses running side by side making very different products. I'm not so involved in that, but at the time we were making masks also for industry. So you would have pharmaceutical companies coming to us looking for branded masks that were up to a certain spec. Then sports started to come back, and we had this funny world of half making masks on the floor and half making jerseys, so it was really... you didn't know if you were coming or going some days, but it was a significant period of change, and really proud of the way we adapted and handled it, and we've become a better company for it.
Brilliant. It's very much a family business.
Oh, very much, yeah. So I think in the last year at one stage there was 5 of us working. I actually had to manage my sister directly at one point as well, which was a bit of crack, you know. There was one guy who sat in between us in the office, and I think both ears were chewed off him, you know, by the time before Jessica's actually gone back to New York now. But no, we all got on. We all get on pretty well. Some of us are working in the other business now as well. Fortunately, we all just kind of leave work at the door at 5 o'clock. You kind of have to, you know. But yeah, very much a family business, and some of the people who have been working there have been there for best part of 20 years, so they're like family as well, you know. Everyone there is very much Team Azzurri, that's what we always say, which is a nice way to kind of describe the company, especially when we work in the sports industry, you know. So great staff, great people, and families getting bigger, thankfully, you know.
Brilliant. Ross, you're involved in 3 teams at the moment, well, probably more, but Leinster, Ireland, and your new startup, Starfolio. Have you not enough pressure in your life that you need to add starting a new business? Congratulations on what you've done over the last year, and obviously best of luck for what's coming in the future. Entrepreneurship, where'd you get the bug? You know, what's driving you to try and do this while you're obviously still at the peak of your powers?
Yeah, like obviously I think I suppose as a fresh rugby player, like your schedule is very busy, particularly when you're involved with Leinster and Ireland, but I think it's always good to have something away from rugby, you know what I mean? Because like there's a lot of highs, a lot of lows, but I think there's a lot of times where over the last few years when I wasn't involved in anything, I'd finished college and I was only focused on rugby, and you'd be worried about selection, you wouldn't get picked, you'd have a bad game, and you'd only be thinking about that. Whereas I think when Starfolio, when we came up with that and started working on that a lot more, if something went bad, you'd be working on that, you take away from it, and then you'd be able to go back to rugby. So if anything, it's probably helped my rugby career, sure, I would say, because I think it's important to have a bit of a balance. Otherwise, I think it can completely consume you, particularly the higher up the level you go. And I suppose where it probably came from was like, I suppose my dad's always been pretty entrepreneurial, and he's always been involved in business, and I suppose he was always encouraging me to, when I'd finished college, to go do something else, and I was I wouldn't be a big studier. So I suppose trying to avoid any masters as long as I kind of could or anything like that. So my older brother, Michael, we were kind of chatting, and I suppose we kind of came up with this, and I said, well, kind of be a bit of a real life masters. So it's been brilliant so far. I suppose to give a quick background on what it is, it's we're a marketplace platform that connects brands and fans with stars, and stars range from sports stars to social media influencers, chefs, musicians, comedians, anything like that. And I suppose for brand, like if a brand is looking for a brand ambassador or someone to come out and do a photo shoot, they connect with the star on the platform. It's all booked and paid through the platform. And I suppose we also offer a lot of other different things like masterclasses. Like I have this uncle, he's like constantly gets on to me. Like every 3 months he'll be like, Ross, I have a client, would you go do a kicking session with his son or daughter? I'm like, yeah, no problem. But I mean, I suppose that kind of triggered something as well. How can, I suppose, we make this more available for people? Because if you don't know someone, how do you do that? But also, how can I monetize that as well? Obviously, sure. It was a big thing. So I suppose that's a big thing we offer, you know what I mean? Like mass classes, whether it's chefs coming to your house, cook a meal, or if it's a rugby player or a cricketer or a hurler, whatever it is. And then also stuff like personal video messages and Zoom sessions. So I suppose we're really trying to bridge the gap between fans, brands, big, small brands, and then I suppose who they consider stars in their eyes.
And what's been the biggest challenge you've faced so far in terms of getting it to where it is now? And has there been anything in your sporting career that has probably helped you deal with that?
Yeah, there's been loads of challenges. I suppose something that's kind of similar and different, like in, I suppose, in rugby you play a game, you know what I mean, you build up the focus for the weekend, then it's done, you're on to the next game. Whereas I suppose in business I found that you're playing up for something and then nothing happens for 3 months, you know what I mean? As in, so you're kind of, you could be waiting for it and then the game day is 3-6 months down the line. So that's probably something I found a bit of a challenge at the start. And also I suppose something in Leinster, you know what I mean, if particularly if play out half, you're kind of the one who's leading the week. Whereas I suppose when I went into different meetings with about tech, which I know nothing about, I was kind of sitting there going, geez, I feel kind of a bit redundant here, you know what I mean? So I probably had to take a bit of a step back and kind of trust everyone else to do their thing, which probably helped me in rugby as well. And probably made me way better at probably delegating and trusting other people's opinions. But I suppose the biggest challenge we probably found is probably trying to educate people on, because it's quite a new idea, you know what I mean? And people always go, oh, you're an agency. We're not an agency. I mean, I'm with Navy Blue, and we've kind of probably had to educate brands how it works and do a lot of hand-holding, which is absolutely perfect. We're happy to do it, but there's been lots of ups and downs, but so far it's been brilliant.
Brilliant. And what's the next step? What's the next 3 months? What's the big challenge or big goal?
So obviously we're in Ireland actively at the moment, but we're signing up a lot of UK stars and brands, and we haven't actually, I suppose, been live in the UK, but over the summer we're looking to do a big push in the UK, and we have a few big marketing plans in the next couple of months, which everyone will hopefully see.
Okay, great. Jack, Azzurri, what's on your to-do list?
God, where do I start? No, I think one of the biggest challenge for us is when you're working making sportswear. The unique thing is that if we make an order yesterday and then we make another one today, they're completely different from one another, you know. So if I make a set of jerseys for Leinster, you know, it's completely different to the jersey that we made that day. So the intricacies and the administration, the attention to detail was something that we really had to develop our internal processes so that we could, you know, make sure everything was done correctly. Because every order is different to the one that comes before that, to the ones that comes before that. Because we knew we had a great product, we knew we had a great customer service, but you can't be everything to everybody, and you know, kind of trying to make this for that person, and doing it without sticking to an internal process. So over the last 5 years, what we've really been trying to focus on is how we can do things better internally, you know, control the controllables. And since we've done that, we've really fixed up our lead times and our attention to detail. Our products have become a lot better, and that's, you know, Ireland is a small place. If one team gets a set of jerseys and they're happy with it, you know, the one town over, even if the clubs hate each other, will actually turn around and go, oh God, yeah, they're lovely, we want some of those as well, you know. Now there are a lot of competitors in the country who are all going to say, oh yeah, we offer good products and all that kind of thing, but what they want is a good quality product and a good turnaround time that's hassle-free. You know, and that's what we kind of pride ourselves on at the moment. You know, we take all that pain away from the customer, and the more we focus on that, the more we can actually get new business. You know,
sure.
And that's been the biggest challenge in the last 2 years, and it's always going to be continuous. You know, because just when you think you have something right, you got to go back and look at something else because this customer wants that or they want this, and then you have to adjust your process to fix that. And you know, the family element always comes back into it because you'll always be kind of trying to sneak things, you know, under, around, or over the process, and then someone comes up to you and says, no, stop that, you know, because that leads to mistakes. And that's what we need to do. So yeah, we've just been focusing on that for particularly in the last 2 years, and it's really helped. It's really helped, you know, and just trying to grow the market share, you know. As I said, Ireland is a small country. It's predominantly GA that we do. I don't know if I'm allowed to say GA in the middle of 3 professional rugby players. No. But yeah, you know, it's it's the most predominant sport in the country, so trying to grab that market is really critical. And then you get the other things. You get the soccer clubs, the rugby clubs, basketball, anything and everything, athletics, badminton, schools, you name it. You know. So as I said, just focusing on the internal process has really exposed us to the wider market by being better ourselves.
And in terms of those internal processes, do you think it helped you a lot, not going straight from university home and going to work for
absolutely,
companies you worked for?
Yeah.
How hard has it been to readapt to, I suppose, a family business that's successful, that sometimes things are set in stone?
Yeah, I think it's been a journey, you know. I remember when I was in Oracle, I went into a meeting once my manager said, all right, Jack, give me an update on this project. And I said, it's in a good place, yeah, and it's moving along, it's coming along nicely. And he was from the Netherlands, and they don't mess around, you know. And he goes to me, Jack, you opened your mouth and you just said nothing. What's going on? And I said, yeah, I suppose I kind of did say nothing there, didn't I? You know, but you know, it was all these things. But if I hadn't been, let's say, you know, playing rugby myself over the years, been getting criticism there and been taking it on board, maybe I wouldn't have taken it on board with Oracle as well as much. So by the time I went into working with Azzurri, having been with Currency Fair and Oracle, I was able to take all those things and, you know, give constructive criticism and also take constructive criticism and not take it personally, you know. So it's been a real journey, and it all starts with coming from sports to working off in an independent business and taking the learnings from there and applying it to our own, you know. But yeah, massively different culture, particularly Oracle, who are one of the biggest software companies in the world. But there's always learnings you can apply, you know, definitely. And I think, one of the ones that stuck with me the most was, getting called out there, you know, and, you know, making sure I've got something to say and, you know, show where we are, where we intend to be, and where we've come from.
Perfect. Sene, spoke about learnings there. What learnings did you have in your sporting career that you think is helping you now in your new career? And you can just maybe give us an insight into the projects you're involved in at the moment.
Yeah, great question. I'm so inspired by these guys. Jeez, Fizz, I'm sure you guys are as well. I could listen to you all day. There's a number of different roles, and I think a lot of the learning, certainly for me, and I will sort of dive into a few of them, not all of them, but I suppose, so there's a number of few roles that I do, which is actually, there's an art to having to navigate and deliver in different forms. And I'll give you just a quick example just to give you context. There's an area of broadcasting that I'm involved in. I recently worked the World Cup in New Zealand, and I'm working the Six Nations campaign now for BBC and Virgin. So that's sort of one dynamic of a front-facing of a campaign. That I'm also behind the scenes on a campaign and sort of global strategic project to support what the game needs to look like from a woman's perspective. On top of another piece of work, which is a DE&I consultancy across national and global organisations. I was in Germany last week, and also sort of last week with our ERC as well, in the World Employment Federation. So a lot of different types of organisations towards the same kind of principle around just equal opportunity for girls and women in sport to be their best and thrive. So across those three elements, there's an art to kind of navigating how I then deliver in the moment. So sorry, it probably sounds really confusing, and sometimes it is for myself. But when you ask me about the learnings from sport and then being able to deliver off the pitch in that sense, I think first and foremost, just being yourself. I think in the moment, like you sort of play the moment in front of you, but being yourself and being my authentic self has actually got me into rooms that I didn't expect to get in, or got me around a table I didn't expect to get around, purely because I was just so passionate about something that is a human right, sort of basic human right in terms of girls and women in sport and business, diversity, equity and inclusion. And what that's done is it's meant that the future now of business is ensuring that that's what your governance and leadership looks like. From a rugby perspective, being myself and being passionate about making sure across the different unions, and obviously some unions are doing incredible and some have to do the work, which is fine, they acknowledge that, but just around sort of, governance and leadership competition structures, which I'm really sort of fascinated about as a bit of a sports nerd. Commercial programs to underpin, and we've got FBD, we've got our sponsor here that have underpinned this event today. So exactly, that strategic relations, which is also what I do, and then you've got personal development programs for athletes off the pitch. What does that look like for their weekly schedule, and then also just an environment that can improve quality of coaching and encourage that kind of knowledge share across whether it's a decentralised or a centralised model in a club game to support the high performance model. So I'll stop talking nerd chat, but there's a whole bunch of jargon that I find really, really fascinating. I'm doing a professional doctorate in elite sport, and a lot of my work there as well is at a high kind of level. So I must apologise for some of the jargon that I'm saying, but I do want to just reiterate that the main learning for me from sport to business is around being your authentic self. I've always been known as a bit of a fearless, kind of ask for forgiveness later. I was always like that. My first position in rugby was an out half. So as a 10, a playmaker, take it to the line and then feed like my assist. Or when I moved to Ireland, I was then a second playmaker, a third playmaker, so 12 and 13. So what I loved to do was take it to the line and assist. But that's my favourite thing to do in rugby. I love the ball in hand, play make, to put everyone else in the gap to score. So when my work off the pitch, that's what I do, and that's what I love doing. So I love the behind the scenes, assist, global go, and I love in front of the scenes to promote and highlight women's rugby. So I just find just being yourself is first and foremost the most important thing. And you then attract wonderful people like yourselves I'm in the room here with.
Jesus, You learned a lot. I think in 14 years I learned just be on time. You're after putting me to shame there with everything you've picked up, and and what a leader you now are, obviously, in terms of trying to pave the future for the next generation. So congratulations, I'm in awe of you. I think leadership is a big part of business and growing businesses. So, and Ross, I want to ask you a little bit about Andy Farrell, okay, because that's passed, and for the Grand Slam. And in terms of, I've spoken to a lot of players and coaches who work with him, and they talk about the leader he is. Can you just tell us about what he's done to create this team, who obviously have the ability to play, but also seem to be connected in a way that is stronger than previous teams?
Yeah, so I was in the squad under Joe Schmidt. I suppose even the difference in how, as you say, they're connected or together, the squad is now, like, I suppose the lads are genuinely great mates. I suppose, to be fair to Andy, the first thing I think he said when he came in was he wants everyone to be themselves. And I suppose I think he loves the different characters in the squad. Like, he loves lads that are a bit mental and quirky. You can see that with Mac, you know what I mean? Like Mac Hansen, you know what I mean? Like, he's bananas, but like, you have someone like him, and then you probably have someone like me who's probably complete opposite of that, you know what I mean? So he loves everyone to be themselves, but he loves everyone then, I suppose, to come together. And look, there's obviously lots and lots of detail and hard work that goes in with all of this as well. It's not all like joking, but there's a great balance between when we're on, we work really hard, but when we're off, we relax, we be ourselves, we get to know each other. It's very important, you know what I mean? So then when the game comes, when the tough times come, you probably dig in, I don't know, the extra 1%. It does make a difference. I know people think how much important, like, is it important for a team to bond and all that stuff, but genuinely it does make a huge difference. I think that's a big thing. He's driven, and he hasn't gone away from that message at all. He's continually driven that home. Yeah,
I asked Johnny Sexton that question about who's the best coach he ever had, and he said Joe Schmidt was the best coach, but Andy Farrell's the best leader. And he gave the example. So Johnny said his personality loves someone like Joe Schmidt, who was holding people to account, very outcome focused, very process focused. And he said his biggest learning as a leader was after the 2019 World Cup was, so how Johnny explained it was, on a Sunday morning, if they were going to camp in Carton House on a Sunday night, he'd have his bag packed, and he'd be driving up the driveway of Carton House, so excited to get into camp to learn how to get better. But he found out after the World Cup that some people were actually at the gates going, I don't want to go in. And there were only a few, but it only takes a few to affect it. And where Farrell has obviously made sure that it's still everyone's held to account, but it's done in a nicer way. And that's hard in high performance sport. And I think what you mentioned there, Ross, about everyone being friends and being really close. I'd love to know from your experience in Azzurri, how hard is it in business to create that sense of teamwork, teammanship, connection that we all strive for in sport? You know, it's a challenge, I'd imagine.
Yeah, I think you need to row everybody into the plan. You know, especially in a business like ours, there's 35 people. So whilst it's not huge, it is a lot to manage and a lot of people, and everybody needs to be rowed into what the end objective is. You know, I remember when I used to play with the water park youth rugby, and we'd kind of captain teams there, and was very good at getting the team fired up before the match and all that. And then we did really well. But then afterwards, one time we got hammered, and the coach said, "Look, you're not at anything, Jack, if you can get the team motivated, but you can't work to a game plan or a strategy." And I think cluing and that's true in rugby. It's also true in sport. Sorry, in business. If you bring everybody into what you're trying to achieve, everyone is an important cog in that. Everybody is from your sales to your order processors to people who do your artworks to people who physically make the jerseys to who dispatch them on time. You know, so we'll constantly have meetings, let people know where we are versus our goals. You know, I think we could do better at this. We're far off here. Why do you think that is? Get the input from the people on the ground as to why it's not working, as opposed to me just saying, you know, that's not good enough. Why you need to do better. Here, what are the problems? Why is it not working? How can we help you get there? So bringing everybody in, showing them where we are, where we need to be, how we're going to get there, and getting their active kind of real time feedback has been crucial. You know.
Sene, what's the biggest challenge for you in terms of delivering on those really important messages and changes you want to make? What's holding you back, or what roadblocks are you coming across?
The roadblocks that people experience every day, it's just more, at the end of the day, is people.
Sure.
Just mindset shift paradigms. But I might actually, if it's okay, just come back to the point on Joe
Absolutely.
Schmidt. Yeah. And because it can probably feed into the answer. And it is around allyship, especially in the work that I do, and certainly male allyship. And Joe Schmidt would probably be one of my biggest ones in my work. So I was former head of strategic projects and research for international rugby players, and my role was to collaborate with World Rugby on a number of different projects across the men's and women's game. So right now I do similar but in a different capacity as an individual consultant. In one of my first major projects, it was also the same year, Joe Schmidt was high performance director in World Rugby. I remember sitting in the meeting, and here I am, small town girl from old New Zealand, Yuan here on the Zoom, and you kind of get that sense, my emotional intelligence. I know, I've got to be on here. Things are firing at you, and this, and it's grand. Manage it, and Joe comes in, just empowers you to go for it, and I'll never forget that. And then we delivered one of the most successful kind of development of one of the many, many projects World Rugby are doing, and other organisations who were doing so well, which was the contact load back then.
Sure.
So there's a whole piece of work that we had to do in terms of developing that, and how we had to gather the research and data and all that sort of stuff. So we did a lot of the background work, but that process in itself, the way that he just knew and empowered me to support that lead of that project, because it was my first big one, together with Conrad Smith at the time, Joe, and a massive team, and even in the process of, Ross will know, when you've got like an outcome, you've got to get something, you have a leadership group meeting, you go through certain things, and it was one of those things where everyone was on the same page, so we actually got it done quite quick, like relatively effectively, quite efficient, compared to historically, other things might take longer because everyone's on different there's a difference between diversity and, making your decisions versus just aligned thinking and go. So that was just an interesting thing there in that piece of work. And then to come back to your question, which was?
About the challenges you face.
Yeah.
Or the roadblocks.
So the roadblocks is when that doesn't happen.
Sure.
The roadblocks is the opposite. And then you have to spend time and energy to get everyone to the place where you could have got there like 6 months ago. And then by then you're already late. So you've got to work again even more. So sorry, that's my point.
Yeah, no, and well made. Ross, I want to talk about pressure. Okay, so background, you've been out in the wilderness a little bit from Ireland. November, third test against Australia. You come on, what, 20 minutes to go, 18 minutes?
I think it's 10 maybe.
10 minutes, okay, right. And you have a kick that's going to probably win the game or lose the game. What's going through your mind?
This is going to sound weird, but not much, to be honest.
Okay.
So we had the scrum, and
That's like me all the time, yeah.
to be honest, when the ball was going in the scrum, like, obviously we had a good attacking opportunity, but to be honest, all I was thinking was like, please get a penalty.
Really?
Please get a penalty.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we got the penalty, like, I was... Well, as you said, look, I'd been out of the squad for so long.
Yeah.
And probably in the past, when I was a bit younger, I probably thought too much of, if this goes wrong, or I probably thought a bit too much about the judgment of things, whereas like I think I just said, look, if I ever get a chance again, I'm going for it, no matter what happens, you know what I mean? So I was just kind of like, hopefully we get a penalty here, and then as soon as the penalty was awarded, we had a bit of advantage, and I just pointed straight at the post and said, I'm going for this. And look, thankfully it went over, and it was a big moment for me, and certainly enjoyed the night after.
Was there times when you were a little bit in the wilderness where you wondered, would you get that chance?
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Oh, there was times where I was like, I'd never play for Ranelagh again.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think like, we're all human at the end of the day, you know what I mean? There was times where I thought, I should be in there. And then there's times where you think, it's gone. I suppose that's what it's like being a professional sports person, because it's so week to week, you know what I mean? You have such highs, such lows. But like, have to be patient, and I'm not a very patient person. It's not easy to be patient in sport, I don't think either. But yeah, that's what I just said to myself. If I get my chance, I'm just going to go for it, and thankfully went over.
Yeah, because I remember Paul O'Connell used to use a quote, the reason I trust myself is because I doubt myself. So basically, at certain times he doubts himself, and that leads him to working harder, that leads him to, I suppose, prepping for those big moments. And then when it comes, he trusts himself to actually deliver, you know what I mean? So I think, and listening to you and speaking to other people in elite sport, it's not like they believe themselves all the time, but so those doubts actually helped them be able to deliver at the key moment.
Yeah, I think a big thing that week probably as well. So I wasn't in the squad at all, and then got the call. I trained at Leinster on the Monday. I got the call after training, like 4 o'clock, off Andy Farrell. Like, will you come into camp just as cover? I think Joey Carberry maybe got injured the week before. So I came in not expecting to play, just to be third choice cover, just in case something happened. The whole week went fine, so I was covered. Then the game was Saturday night. I was just doing the warm up, not playing. I was kicking with Johnny actually for probably about 5-10 minutes, and then he stopped kicking, and I was like, "Yeah, all right." And he was kind of, I think it was his calf was at him, and he was like, "Yeah, I don't know." So I went inside, and I was kind of like, "What's going on here? Am I in? Am I not?" And then obviously I was in, but I suppose what I said to myself as well was, even though I didn't think there was like, I don't know what the percentages of when you're the reserve of playing, but it's very low. But I did all the preparation as if I was playing, because I just said, you may never get a chance, and I'd rather do all the prep and not play than if I got that opportunity and I didn't do any of the mental prep, I'd be probably standing over the ball going, oh, Jesus Christ, hopefully this goes over, as opposed to it's going over. Like, so that was probably a big thing that I learned as well. Just, as you said there, trust you've done the prep. That was a big lesson.
Do you prefer stadium quiet or cheering or booing when you're taking that kick to win a game for Ireland?
I never really thought about that, to be honest.
Yeah.
Be weird if it was booing now.
Yeah, well, they do. Go to France. Go play top 14 in France.
Yeah. I don't think it really...
Yeah.
I played
you don't
in
even
France.
notice.
I think the claps in France is quite good.
Yeah.
But no, I don't think it really makes a difference.
Yeah. I asked, just interesting, I asked Johnny Sexton that question, and he said one or the other. But he said he remembers the last time they played Australia back 4 or 5 years ago. I think he had a newborn at home, and the stadium was quiet, and he put the ball down. Next thing he heard a baby crying, and he said he's just going, why is that baby here? That baby should be at home. It's 9 o'clock, whatever. And he said he just couldn't. Like, he's practiced doing lots of things to get it out of his head, but he just couldn't clear his head. Shanked it wide, whatever. So one or the other. We asked Jack about the family dynamics and working with your family. You've got your brother competing with you for the same position. I mean, how difficult is that?
It's probably harder for our parents.
Yeah. Are you competitive with each other?
Oh yeah, but we've been competitive since we were playing in the back garden, you know what I mean? Or could be playing table tennis, you know what I mean? We're still competitive, or golf, whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like, we've always been competitive, but we're also best mates, like. Okay. So it's, yeah, it is weird. Like, some of the lads can't get their head around it. They're just like, how does this work? Like, you know what I mean? But it is what it is, and it pushes us on. But like, I suppose even the last couple of weeks, obviously we've both been involved in the games, and like, we'd both be in the meetings deciding what's going to happen, or discussions, you know what I mean? Both kind of leading the team. So I suppose from that perspective, it's also quite special, like, because you don't really get two brothers playing together. It doesn't really happen in professional sport that much. And we've actually played together quite a bit as well on the pitch, which I think my mum particularly, is delighted when we're on the pitch together as opposed to one or the other. Sure. But yeah, it's like everything. Look, it has its ups and it has its downs. Okay,
last question from all of you, and then we'll open up to the floor. Sene, what's the one thing from sport you think is going to help you in your career?
One. Okay. Sorry.
Okay.
I'll start with the first.
Answer a few.
One.
A couple. The big things.
Probably, I said it before, which is be yourself.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, be yourself. Bring your full self.
Perfect. Jack?
Same question?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think for me it was about, I was a very kind of shy young fella, and I think what I've taken from it is just learning to work with people. It's made me more social, it's made me more approachable, and it's especially when you're trying to manage a lot of people. You realize that you can't do it all. You have to rely on other people, so you have to trust other people as well. And I think that's probably the best thing that I've taken out of it. I was just to be a team player, but being a team player means trusting your team, because you have to, if you can't be looking over your shoulder, everybody else's shoulder. So, trusting them to do the job, and where there's problems, you work together, you solve them, and you get through it.
Okay. Ross, Starfolio becomes the next unicorn. What's the big thing from sport that helps you get there?
Probably my competitiveness. I think though very similar to what Jack's saying there. Like in terms of a big thing in sport is like I find to get the best out of myself, I need to get the best out of the others. I think if you make people feel good, they'll work harder and they'll be more effective, and then in turn that's going to make you better. So I think that's probably the biggest thing.
Okay, perfect. So actually just one more question, sorry for Ross, because I listened to a podcast yesterday with Craig Doyle, and I remember speaking to a few of the players after the week of the French game. So you might just tell us about, so I suppose Brian and Dr. Davy Irwin and Craig Doyle coming in that week, and explaining what did they do that I suppose helped create that connection.
Yeah, so obviously they came in, obviously did the documentary, I'm not sure how long it was ago, but obviously about the difference between, I suppose, the north and the south of Ireland, and how, I suppose in football we've Northern Ireland, Republic of Ireland, whereas rugby it's one team, and obviously the documentary, and when they spoke to us about, I suppose, when lads were up north and they'd be coming down to training or they'd be coming down to play in Dublin, and they were telling stories of how if an Ulster player would come down or he was playing at the weekend and his parents would come down, they would sit in a different seat every game because they'd be feared they might be targeted because their son was involved in the police up north. So I suppose it was a lot of stuff around that, and for, like, obviously I'm aware of a lot of us who grow up in Dublin or different areas of the south are aware of what's happened, but I suppose it really hit home there that we were kind of going, geez, we thought there was pressures of playing for Ireland, and there was players playing for Ireland, and they're probably in the back of their mind going, I hope my parents are alive or not being targeted, like. And that was probably a big thing. And then I suppose even around Ireland's call, they spoke a lot about that, and like it's not the nicest sounding anthem, but I suppose for us it was what it actually means to them, that it's how inclusive it is for everyone, the whole island. And I think it really hit home with a lot of us, and some of the senior players spoke, Paul O'Connell spoke, Keith Earl spoke about how maybe earlier on in their careers they were probably very against it, they were, sure, no, I'm very Republican, but towards the end of their career, how much it means to everyone in Ireland, and how important that song is, and it definitely struck a big nerve, and I think it definitely changed my mindset completely, and it's definitely, I think it made a big difference, definitely brought the teams together.
Yeah, and I think the successful teams that I've been involved in or looked at externally, they either really understand their own history, or they're very focused on creating history, and it's a huge driver of effort and momentum. So, look, I think that's enough questions for me. We'll ask the people who have more intelligence and more IQ. So I'll just open up the floor, please. Just because we want to get all these on the pod, if you just wait till the microphone comes over before you ask the question, and we'd be delighted to.
Thanks, Bernard. Ivan from Tappy Tag. Question for Ross. Love Starfolio, by the way. Fantastic. How have you gone about recruiting the stars and challenges? You were saying that you've had a bit of pushback from agencies, but surely it's a beautiful bolt-on for agencies. What challenges have you come across?
I suppose reaching out to the stars, it's just been a lot of time. It's just been reaching out to them over LinkedIn, Instagram, contacts, which has been, it was very time consuming, which we're still doing. Obviously, it's a lot easier now because obviously we're in the public eye and people are a lot more aware of it. And I suppose other challenges, I suppose even for brands and fans, is just kind of, for us, I suppose, it's trying to show people, make it very simple for people, where some people probably are a little bit confused as to what we are. So I suppose that's why we probably changed a lot of our messaging from the start. So now it's very clear exactly what we do. And I suppose from the agency side of things, I suppose a big thing which we've actually built recently is an agent dashboard, which is great. So if I'm an agent and I had 10 clients, I can just log in on my email, my agent login, and I can build all of my clients' profiles. So their clients actually don't even ever have to be on the platform. So for them, it would work their relationship wouldn't change with the client. If anything, we'd just be bringing them more leads, because obviously we're very aware that agents have brilliant relationships with different brands or PR companies, and we don't want to stop any of that. We just want to bring them more leads they might not have got in the past.
Anyone else?
Sorry, it's probably a question for Ross again, but if anyone else wants to answer. You talked there, I'm Ariana Dunn from Irish Country Magazine, but I'm training for an amateur MMA fight at the moment, and I was talking this morning about mindset, and you mentioned there about the mental prep that you took part in before doing that game. You obviously physically warmed up, but can you take us through your mental prep as well, if that's possible?
Giving away the trade secrets, man.
You have to book him through Starfolio.
Yeah. Masterclass. I suppose it's probably quite different for, rugby's a very technical game, particularly the position I do. So there'd be a lot of work we do during the week and a lot of different analysis. So I suppose the biggest thing for me is I try and box a lot of that stuff off early on in the week. So then come towards the end of the week, I can do my own mental preparation, and a lot of that might be different imagery of the game, if you know what I mean, if it's taking a kick or visualising different things, or different scenarios, how I might react to a different scenario. So, because I think the mental side of things, it's getting bigger and bigger in sport. And I think even you see teams now, how many teams now have psychologists, and I think it's so important just to be in the right headspace. And so many different things in the world now with phones that can distract you and take you out of the perfect mindset or your best mindset for 1-2%. So for me, it's just trying to be in the best headspace possible.
So just want to thank my panel, guys, Ross, Jack, Sene, and thank you for your attendance here and your interest, and also Breed, the team from Guaranteed Irish, and our sponsor FBD. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
We hope you enjoyed this special episode of the Guaranteed Irish Business Podcast live from the Stella Theatre. Thank you to our guest host Bernard Jackman and our fantastic panel, Sene Naoupu, Jack Molloy and Ross Byrne, for sharing their insights with us. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to like it and share it with your friends. And don't forget to subscribe to the show wherever you are listening, as we have another special live episode coming next week on the power of influencer marketing with guest host Anna Daly, so stay tuned for that.
The Guaranteed Irish Business Podcast, sponsored by FBD Insurance, Ireland's largest homegrown insurer. Support. It's what we do.